지금 현시되는 이 사진들에 나오는 자들은 하나와 같이 제 스스로 사람이기를 그만둔 자들입니다. 자기를 낳아준 부모와 나서 자란 고향, 키워준 조국을 향해 더러운 침방울을 튕기며 악담을 쏟아내는 그야말로 개보다도 못한 인간 쓰레기들입니다. 여기서 우리는 이 자들이 남조선으로 도주하기 전 공화국에 있을 때부터 어떤 범죄자들이었는가에 대해서, 또 이런 추물들이 어떻게 돼서 국제 무대까지 얼굴을 내밀고 있지도 않은 호의와 날조를 꾸며대고 있는지, 그 뒤에는 어떤 검은 그림자가 비껴 있는지 다시 한번 까발키려고 합니다.
This is Tae Yong-ho, defected to South Korea in August 2016 with the career of an alleged high-level diplomat from the north. He stands up in the forefront of the anti-DPRK human rights smear campaign launched by the hostile forces. According to the flattery given to him by the hostile forces, he is a high-class defector from the north, a treasure that might be used in realizing their plots. Then what is his true identity, and how did he come to betray his motherland and family all overnight? Let's see now. From what we've learned from our agencies concerned, a heinous label of state felon was attached to the name Tae Yong-ho. There goes an old saying that a snake molts once a year, but a betrayer changes mask every day. Completely degenerated by the decadent capitalist ideas through long years of living abroad, he very often projected himself as a man of strict principle and an eloquent speaker when he was in the homeland. Many of his former colleagues shuddered in unison to say that he was a shameless guy who would trade his parents for his own self-interest and a filthy scum obsessed with money and sex.
제가 태영을 이제 한마디로 또 지정적으로 이제 평가하게 되는 거는 그놈이 이제 지금까지 해온 모든 원사와 행동, 이것이 자기를 가리우기 위한 이런 하나의 위선에 불과했다.
태영과 같은 부분에서 일했고 제 생활도 같이 한 제가 평가를 내린다면 태가는 정말 인간이 아니라고 단언할 수 있습니다. 남의 아픔이나 고통은 제 놈의 god불만큼도 여기지 않았으며 더욱이 제 부모들까지도 전혀 돌보지 않았습니다. 부모들이 중병을 앓는다고 해도 병문안 한 번 가지 않아 제 아버지가 아들을 짐승만도 못한 불효막심한 놈이라고 원망하면서 운명했다는 그 한 가지 사실만으로도 태영의 인간됨을 잘 알 수 있습니다.
From olden times, the fates of human rejects of this kind are predestined. As Tae himself confessed, the long years of living abroad further transformed him into an even filthier scum. He eventually sold state secrets, only obsessed with money, and ended up fleeing to South Korea after stealing a huge sum of state funds. On receiving the cases about Tae, the DPRK Central Public Prosecutor's Office expanded its scope of investigation to confirm that in addition to state fund embezzlement, he had also committed a horrible crime of statutory rape. Statutory rape is an unpardonable felony in any country. There is a victim who is brutally dishonored by this human scum. Years have passed since Tae perpetrated such offense, but even today she still suffers from the nightmare of the day.
생각하면 지금도 치가 떨리고 피가 거꾸로 솟습니다. 저에게 외국어를 배워준다고 하면서 여기저기 데리고 다니다가 어느 날인가 그런 짓을 정말 그때 태영호는 사람이 아니었습니다. 그런 변태가 오늘까지도 머리를 쳐들고 다닌다고 하니 정말 기가 막히고 분통이 치밀고 태영호는
This is the true future of Tae Yong-ho, who is uttering nonsense about the human rights issue of others and doing all sorts of evil things, wearing the mark of a National Assembly member in South Korea. Here is another scum who is no less than Tae. Name Ji Song-ho, born on 3rd of April 1982 in Hwaryong City, North Hamgyong Province. defected to South Korea in July 2006. This scum is a habitual thief, a born thief who ever since childhood took to stealing whatever he laid eyes on and selling off whatever he stole. In 1996, he was maimed, losing his left arm and leg after falling off from a running train while committing larceny. But once a thief, always a thief forever. Even with one arm and leg, he didn't stop stealing.
그다음에 석탄 팔아도 들어오니까 그래서 그 집에 등이 학교 안 다니고 그다음 무지가 건달 꾼들 모여 살았다면 나한테 어서서 된다 그 가래리 집
물력이 나보다 강하니까 나 충분히 그런 일을 할 수 있고 그리고 이 팔다리가 없는 이렇게 육체적 불구이기 전에 정신적으로도 불구단 말인데 그러니까 좀 뭐.
It is more than ridiculous that Ji Song-ho, a worthless human scum who was scorned by everyone around him before defection, is said to have now become a member of the National Assembly in South Korea alongside Tae Yong-ho. Such being the case, it is quite easy to guess what the South Korean National Assembly is all about. Here is another human scum we cannot exclude. This is Park Sang-hak, who invented an anti-DPRK conspiracy organization called Alliance for Movement of Free North and is resorting to all sorts of diabolical treacheries. He also led an indecent life in the DPRK, having illicit affairs with many women by all means of fraud and deceit. Worse still, he is a criminal who had been arrested while conspiring with his younger brother Park Yong-hak to smuggle a precious cultural artifact of national value.
살겠다고 유혹해가지고서리 그리고 끝까지 살지도 못하면서 여자들 빈 집에다가 벗어나가는 것처럼 이렇게 그렇게 위장해가지고는 여자들 그냥 빈 집에서 매난히 며칠 동안 기다리게 해놓고
싸움질 잘하고 그래서 단편적으로 본다면 싸움할 때 그래서 그냥 흉계를 지는 게 전 자기 생활의 업이 됐고 그렇게 하고 상하게 아새끼 조금만부터 이 짜게 바지 입을 때부터 흉계 가지고
This worthless human scum dared to scatter leaflets on the 31st of May containing an insult to the sacred supreme dignity of the DPRK, thus enraging our people and the KPA service personnel. Among such criminals and dirties, there is also Lee So-yeon, who created a conspiracy group called New Korea Women's Union and is casting all sorts of aspersions on the DPRK through anti-DPRK broadcasts and at international meetings. Her real name is Lee Jong-hwa. She is a ragtag who has indulged in fraudulent and promiscuous life of every sort before fleeing to South Korea in 2006, abandoning not only her parents but even her 5-year-old son. She was even discharged from military service for her indecent private life. Her repeated harping on about what she calls reality of North Korean women's human rights are in the long run nothing less than clumsy, brazen excuses for a dirty past and an abominable begging for a petty sum of money from those forces hostile to the DPRK. Lee Jong-hwa's ex-husband Han Myung-nam testifies as follows.
그건 다 거짓말이야. 원래 가는 원래 그런 쓰레기를 몇신 정당에서 놔둔데.
As you can see, she's a lowlife who couldn't even complete her military service. With basic reason and moral ethics thrown out the window, what could such a scum know about our reality, and what proper words could we expect to hear from her? These are not the only ones who run amok at the beck and call of the hostile forces, making false and framed testimonies on the fictitious human rights issue of the DPRK. In the course of reinvestigating the despicable identities of these scums who betrayed their motherland and fled to South Korea, we have drawn a conclusion that they are all equally good-for-nothing criminals and filth that have completely abandoned the basic qualifications as human beings. It took millions of years for animals to evolve into humans, but it seems only a moment is enough for human to turn into animal. Then how come these criminals and swindlers still strut around the streets of South Korea, blatantly spreading lies and falsehoods when their true identities have already been disclosed? Here is an internet article by an overseas compatriot to give the answer. Defectors have a peculiar quality that is only viable amid confrontation and hostility. The Conservatives make use of this peculiar quality as a tool for confronting the DPRK. The South Korean Conservatives are backed by anti-DPRK activists in the United States, including Suzanne Salty and agencies such as the National Endowment for Democracy. But the big hand that controls them all is none other than the US State Department. Huge sums of the State Department budget flow into organizations and agencies committed to what they call democratization movement in the North. And again, the money is supplied therefrom to the defector groups like the Alliance for Movement of Free North and the Committee for Democracy of the North. To conclude, the physiological desire to sustain their lives with money is the cause of this abnormal and nonsensical phenomenon.
우리는 지금까지 적대 세력의 수적이 돼서 반공화국 머리약 소동의 앞장에서 날뛰고 있는 일부 인간 쓰레기들의 실체에 대해 다시금 해부해 보았습니다. 범죄자 협잡꾼들의 실체가 드러나는 동시에 이자들의 증언에 기초한 적대 세력들의 반공화국 인권 머리약 소동의 실체도 다시 한번 만천하에 적나라하게 드러났습니다. 명백히 말하건대 적대 세력들의 반공화국 인권 머리약 소동은 우리 국가와 제도의 붕괴를 노린 침략 행위이며 적대 세력들이 온갖 거짓과 협잡으로 만들어내고 파생시킨 사기극입니다. 고지서라는 진실을 가리울 수 없으며 부정의는 결코 정의를 이길 수 없습니다. 적대 세력들이 제 아무리 모략과 호의날조를 일삼아도 인민대중 중심의 우리식 사회주의의 정당성과 우월성을 결코 훼손시킬 수 없으며 우리 인민은 적대 세력들의 온갖 도전을 쓸어버리고 이 땅에 기어이 인민의 낙원을 일떠세우고야 말 것입니다.